Hello, hello, hello. I am your host, Tracy Otsuka. Thank you so much for joining me here for another episode of ADHD for Smartass Women. Before we start, I just want to send a little reminder that our book of the same name, ADHD for Smartass Women, is out there, and your book reviews on Amazon really do make a difference. So if my work has ever made a difference in your life, please write a review now. You can go to spyhappy.me/leave a review or go and check our show notes. Now, onto the podcast. So, you know that my purpose is always to show you who you are and then inspire you to be it. In the thousands of ADHD women that I've had the privilege of meeting, I've never met a one that wasn't truly brilliant at something, not one. So, for all of these reasons, I am just delighted to introduce you to Dulce Vasquez. Dulce Vasquez is a formerly undocumented LGBTQ plus Latina. She is an education advocate, change maker, and passionate civic leader. She currently serves as Assistant Vice President for Los Angeles's Outpost, what is wrong with me today? Of Arizona State University. She has served as a Los Angeles City Commissioner and was a 2022 candidate for Los Angeles City Council. She is currently running for California State Assembly District 57 to continue fighting for issues she cares deeply about, including housing, public transportation, education, mental health care, and LGBTQ plus and women's rights. Dulce attended Northwestern University and has a master's from UCLA. She's an active runner and snowboarder and lives in South Los Angeles with her spouse and 2 dogs. Dulce, welcome. And did I get all of that right?
You did. Thank you.
Blah, blah, blah. What a mouthful. And today I just don't seem to, it just doesn't click as well. So I should also mention that we've talked before, but officially we met last weekend. I think it was at the Pasadena event, right? The book event,
Yes.
which was so fun. So I wanted to first say thank you so much for showing up. And, Kismet and the stars aligned and we had a cancellation. And I'm like, Dulce, we need to get you on. So welcome and thank you.
I absolutely believe in Kismet. It was meant to be.
Yep, absolutely. So before we talk about what's going on right now, and your run for state assembly person, I got that right?
Yes.
I want to know, what were the circumstances around your ADHD diagnosis? So can we start with, when were you diagnosed?
I was diagnosed about a year and a half ago officially. So I was 36 at the time. And it was about 5, 6 months after I had wrapped up that 2022 campaign for city council.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm starting to remember that. I think you told me this, but brain. And so what happened that led you to start thinking about, maybe I should get diagnosed? Or did someone say to you, have you considered ADHD?
Well, it was one of those things that was a long time in the making where, I've listened to tons of women on your podcast and other podcasts say that social media really helped them
Mhm.
see the different, traits and see themselves in those traits and see themselves in those stories. So it had been about 2 years where I was like, oh yeah, I do that, or yes, I feel that way, or yes, I do this. But it had never sort of really, was never debilitating, right? In,
Mhm.
in in a way where I was like, oh, like I'm fine.
Because you obviously did well in school. You went to Northwestern.
I did well in school, with lots of difficulties, right? Like not that I think
Mhm.
back on it, right?
It was
School was
hard.
that it was really I
Yeah.
mean, also going from public school to Northwestern, where I'm used to being the smartest person in the room, to now like everyone's the smart person in the room. I felt dumb. I felt dumb
Yeah.
at Northwestern. But in high school, I would not absorb anything in the classroom, and then I would wait till everyone was asleep and then do my homework till like 2 in the morning, or read the textbooks till 2 in the morning under that, stress hormone, right? That you have to get it done.
Yep.
And then sleep bank on the weekends,
Hmm.
right? Which I know I read Ruth Bader Ginsburg used to do that.
Oh,
Um,
I am certain, yeah,
yeah,
that she had ADHD. Obviously,
yeah,
very, high performing, but
high performing.
ADHD. Yeah, you watch any of your documentaries, and there's so much about her that I'm like, I could totally relate to you. Yeah. Plus, she
Absolutely.
probably had higher cognitive functioning too. I think she's just, some of us, if that's our area of interest, we are just, we test really well. I am not one of those, but some of us really do. That's when we can pull it out.
Yeah. So, it hadn't really affected me, but the last 2 to 3 months of the campaign for city council,
Uh-huh.
when the negative attacks started, right? I was
Oh,
never used to that, right? Level of, very personal, very negative. It just sent me into a spiral, like just a complete spiral. And I got through it, right? Sort of like a happy face at night, and then like crying under the table with my dog at night. Um, and at the end of the campaign, right, I lost. The calls stop immediately, right? No one's checking in on you, like, how are you doing? Hey, you did great. Hey, whatever. Like, oh, and,
yep.
and even if they are, you're not listening, right?
Yeah.
Because
I
you're
call
just
that
sitting with,
post-final depression.
yeah. So that's what
You know?
exactly what I went into. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I went into what I imagine was a depressive state where the
Hmm.
only thing that got me out of bed was my dog, but I wasn't focused at work. I wasn't
Yeah.
performing. I wasn't doing all these things. And I was just like, I need something else.
Hmm.
I need a validator for what's happening to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so, had you been thinking of ADHD all along since, like, you were in college? I mean, when did it first come onto
No,
your radar?
no, probably like 2020, right? Pandemic, right? You're bored. You're
Hmm.
like you're
Well,
not
and you
being
started to
productive.
see it
You're
on social
distracted,
media, right?
and then you started seeing it on social
Yeah.
media. Yeah, but I think back to college, and it wasn't that I saw it in myself. I used to be so jealous, right? So for for those of you that are, I don't know if you can tell, I'm brown Mexican, right? Like I'm dark skinned.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I used to get so jealous of all of the kids in college that would use Adderall to stay up at night. It didn't have ADHD, but they were like, using it recreationally
Mhm.
to study at night. And I would just be like, oh my God, like, I wish that could be me, right? That like I could get this thing, right? But I wouldn't
Uh-huh.
even know where to ask for it, and I didn't have the money to
Right.
pay for it.
Yeah.
But I was just like, oh, like that. Oh. So I would think about that, but I was like, never like I actually have it,
Mhm.
because again,
Mhm.
the symptoms that you think are ADHD, like that's not me. Like I'm not jumping around all over the place. My
Okay.
mind is hyperactive, but I am inattentive.
Oh, you're predominantly inattentive ADHD, or you combine type?
Predominantly, I think I'm combined type. I got
Mhm.
diagnosed with inattentive, but I live inside my own brain, so like I know that my mind is just racing all of the time. I'm overthinking. I'm doing all the
Yeah.
things. So I think it's both. It's hyperactive mind.
Well, and I mean, that's the thing about ADHD, right? I'm sorry, you do not get away from the hyperactivity. And that's probably why they changed the definition from attention deficit disorder. Wait, yeah, attention deficit
Interesting.
disorder, ADD, to ADHD, because
Right.
there's always hyperactivity. So I don't even really understand that inattentive type, because I think they're, and even when I watch women, like, it doesn't surprise me if you would say you're combined type, just having been around you, because we still move, right? I
Oh
mean, we're
yeah.
still like tapping our foot or chewing gum, or there's something moving our hand.
Shifting in my seat. Oh
Yeah.
my God, I'm a hand talker. Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
yes. My campaign
Well, and those
manager would be like, "What are you doing with your hands?"
Well, and those are all ways to dissipate energy. And ultimately, the hyperactivity, it's all energy, right? Okay. So, what was your experience going to get diagnosed? Was it a good experience, or was it the typical, female experience where we have to go to 3.2 practitioners to finally get the right diagnosis?
Uh, it was pretty easy, right?
Mhm.
I have phenomenal health insurance. I work for the state of Arizona, phenomenal health insurance. So, I found a provider and
Yeah.
went to them. But, the only guy that was available at the time was this like older gentleman, white, very, very monotone, dry.
Yeah.
And he just went through his checklist and he's like, mm-hmm, okay, mm-hmm, yeah, okay, you have inattentive type. And I'm like, okay. And I stayed with him for a while to try to go through a couple of different medications. And I just couldn't do it anymore. I just could not stand it. And I finally I went uh, to a family member who's a psychiatrist, and I said,
Uh-huh.
"Hey, can you help me find someone else that might be better for me?"
Mhm.
And went to a second psychiatrist, and he was so much better. He was,
Ah.
very engaged, very active, and he said, "Look, you do have ADHD. I'm going to confirm that diagnosis." He's like, "But I also think that there's some system that's working together either in conjunction or it's exacerbating your ADHD symptoms that you have complex PTSD."
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so did medication work for you or did it cause more anxiety like it does for many of us?
I tried one medication that caused way more anxiety, and the one thing that is like my saving grace is that I am a sleeper. I'm dead at night and I fall asleep quickly and I can
Yep.
sleep for 8 hours. So I was on one medication that affected my sleep and raised my heart level to the point where my watch was like, "Hey, like your heart level has been a little elevated
Yeah.
recently," right? My Apple Watch. So we started trying others. I'm still, right now I'm on Ritalin,
Mhm.
but it's been so inconsistent because the supply has been so inconsistent that I still don't have an accurate feeling of like, hey, this is helping, or like,
Mhm.
hey, we're working on it.
So do you manage it primarily through running? Because I know you're a runner and this is actually quite common.
I don't know if I manage it through running because I also, you know, I procrastinate working out, right? Like I enjoy it at the end of it, but it's one of those things where like I will clean my whole damn house before I get on the treadmill.
Yeah, it's
Um,
true.
and there are certain things that I've learned about myself over time. So right now I'm registered for the marathon, right? Not because I enjoy, 5 hours of running during a marathon, but because I know that if I have to do it, I paid for it, I'm going to train for it.
Ah.
So I've now like learned, I have to put certain goals for myself. And it's like, no, I don't want to run 15 miles this weekend, but I'm going to do it because in 5 weeks I have to run a marathon.
So do you do that with other people? So at least it's social, or are you doing that by yourself?
Both. So, there are a couple of run clubs that I run with every so often. There's one run club that I'm training for the marathon with. There have been some weekends where I can't make the timing work and I just like have to do it on my own.
Mhm.
But having that accountability of like, oh my God, I'm not a morning person, as we have established, but 6 a.m. on a Sunday, right? It's like, oh, okay, I have to go. I have to meet these people.
6
And if I'm
PM?
Yeah, I know. But if I do it by myself, I'll go at 10 and then I'm running for 3 hours and it's 1 in the afternoon and my whole day is gone.
Right. That's true. That's true. And then the payoff is always you feel so good when you're done, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a sense of accomplishment when you're done.
Okay. So I know our listeners are thinking, Tracy, you just glossed right over the PTSD. You need to go back to that. So I'd like to know if you're willing to share with us your experience with PTSD and ADHD and where does PTSD start? Where does it end? Where does ADHD start? Where does it end? Like, how do you distinguish between the two? And then how did you go about dealing with it, managing it?
Yeah. So I got the CPTSD diagnosis about a year ago, and I think it has also been a learning process throughout this whole
Mhm.
thing because, um, I think so much of your traumas, and it's not just one event, right? Like I'm an immigrant, right? So
Right.
there is trauma in the move, right? Coming to a new place where you don't speak the language, where you look different than
How old were you?
everyone. I was 7.
Oh, yeah.
I was 7. So, looking back and understanding that, looking back and I've made some connections too over the assimilation and masking.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I actually think the skills that I developed to assimilate
Mhm.
actually sort of double helped me mask my symptoms and my, sort of anxiety, right? Everything involved in that.
Yeah.
So I've been using the last year to sort of break some of that apart. I have not yet decided to start trauma therapy. It's been
Mm.
recommended, but I'm in the middle of a campaign right now as well. So, I want to devote, if I'm going to go through it, I want to devote, a lot of attention to it, a lot of time to it. And I imagine it's going to be very difficult for me and for family. But, there is so much too of specific traumas where I wonder where my ADHD, my empathy, my people pleasing also helped me be a bigger victim in a
Oh,
way. I was sexually abused as a child, not by a family member. Um,
so
I
sorry
had a
about that.
I had a date rape scenario in college. I was in a workplace that was very toxic, and I was
Mhm.
verbally and emotionally abused by a complete narcissist. And understanding now, the connections of narcissists and ADHDers and empathy and
Mhm.
all of these things that makes us a lot more vulnerable.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Um, you know what I love about you is you are running for office. And it's a pretty high office, right?
it is.
And you are willing to talk about all of this, which is what we need. We need people as visible as you and more to be talking about all these things instead of hiding it. And then everybody just assumes, oh, she's perfect. She hasn't
Mhm.
been through anything. She's not one of us. So, can you talk more about that? I know mental health is one of your big interests.
Yeah. Um, so it's funny that you say like she's not perfect because I lived so much of my life, right? Trying to be the model minority,
Uh
right?
huh.
I'm the eldest and oldest, no, oldest. I'm the eldest and the only daughter,
Mm,
right? So my parents fought, for me to come to the US and have a
yeah.
better life. And I needed to have straight A's, right? So even though I didn't absorb anything in the classroom, I still needed to pull out that A, right? My parents just expected so much of me, right? But they weren't you're going to get an allowance for an A, right? Like there was none of that reward system. It was just about survival, right? There was so much of a level of survival in that. Um, but
And
then,
wanting to
in
make them proud, right?
absolutely, the people pleasing, right? Like
Yeah.
my number one is just make them proud. Um, and then,
Oh my
in
God, Dulce,
college,
Dulce, hold on a second. I never connected. Oh my God. I never connected make them proud with people pleasing. Okay. I have to stop and write that down so I don't forget it. I've often thought, this is about me, I'm sorry, but I've often thought that, I'm not a people pleaser. I'm not a people pleaser at all, but you're absolutely right. This need to make your parents proud is all about people pleasing.
yeah.
Wow. Okay. Go on. I'm so sorry.
So perfectionism, right? If
Yeah.
if I'm not going to do it perfectly, that started to kind of bite me in the ass, post college in like the workplace, right? Like if I have a PowerPoint to do or a presentation to do, and it's so hard to get it started, right? So I put it off because it's like not going to be perfect, and then it's late or I don't do it or whatever it
Yeah.
is, right? I have so much when I throw parties, right? Everything has to be
Oh, yeah.
perfect. The flowers and the this and the you know
Yeah.
tablecloths and the music has to be like all the right songs and whatnot. So I think this, the city council race, right? I was so protective of my brand because I had to learn that I had a brand too,
Yeah.
right? My
Hmm.
name is worth something, and we picked the colors and the things had to match, and everything. It was so exhausting. But being vulnerable and opening up and reaching a new level, and towards the end of the campaign was when the Roe decision leak started to come out, and I started talking about my abortion, and that sort of opened the floodgates of everything else, right? Well, it's like, well, yeah, we should talk that I had an abortion, and I'm fighting for mental health care, and we are talking about all of these different issues, and I've gotten even more open as time has progressed because
Mm.
there is a community that wants to be connected, wants to feel validated, and wants to know that the people that we're electing are not just making these policy decisions from a data sheet, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to legislate out of my own personal experience. I'm going
Yeah.
to legislate out of the fact that you should have mental health care access quicker, right? People shouldn't be waiting months for an appointment, that it should be cost effective, that it should be, we should talk about it, right? There are cultural issues, right? When I talk to my parents about it, right? They think that it's something bad or terrible because they grew up in a different culture. And in
Yeah.
order to have a healthy society, we need to start talking about these things that are perfectly normal, right? And the first time that my mom and I had a real conversation, she's like, I didn't know you were suffering from these things. I was like, wait, let's edit that. Like, I'm not suffering from them occasionally, right? This is just how my brain works, and I just have to adapt things. And I just need you to understand that I'm different, right?
Uh-huh. And so taking all of that on in this second experience of running for office, has it been so much better for you?
Oh my goodness, yes. Oh my goodness, yes. I think there are so many different levels to it. One of them is just being authentic and being myself and being open. But I think having the diagnosis and going into this campaign and just being kinder to myself,
Mhm.
right? Just being able to say, like, hey, I've got election days in 10 days, and it's whatever's going to happen is going to happen, right? And I've already worked through accepting whatever the result's going to be. I know that I've given it the best that I can in the middle of everything else that's happening in my life, and at the end of the day the voters are going to decide. But it's just been such a relief understanding myself and just being kinder to myself.
Do you find that by being so honest about who you really are and your experiences, that it's also allowed voters to, oh gosh, what is the word that I'm looking for? They relate. Certain voters are going to relate to you and your message. And so they're going to even be more willing to stick their neck out and, I don't know how else to say it, but really campaign hard for you because you're just so authentic and genuine and they believe in what you're doing.
I hope so. Yes, I get that a lot. I get a lot of folks that are like, "You're so authentic." A lot of people that work on my campaign that have stuck around from the previous campaign, they there's something, I don't know. It's hard for me to see and then repeat, right? But you're like, "Oh, there's something so energetic or
Yeah.
warm or magnetic about you that people are drawn into it." So yes, I hope voters see that too.
Well, you're so genuine. And I think that there's just so much negativity around politics right now. I can't even imagine anyone taking this on. But you just bring you honest, I don't know how else to say it. You're just kind of like this breath of fresh air. You just kind of flit in. You are the antithesis of what I would think of as a politician is, because you know what? You're not constantly moderating your words. You're just who you are.
There's also that politician like intonation that I can't stand. It's so grating for me to listen to.
Wait, what is that? I don't even know that I
I
know
don't
what
know.
that
There's
is.
just like I mean, if you start looking at commercials or speeches or whatever, there's a certain like cadence to their speech
Oh,
that
I'm gonna have to pay attention.
yeah, like I notice it. When I see people on these like campaign flyers, like with their arms crossed, right?
Yeah,
Just I can't stand that.
yeah,
Like that, like
just
the politician look.
yeah, yeah. No, and there's this thinking about every single word that comes out of their mouth, and you can feel that, right?
Yeah, the
Versus just being
hesitation,
real people. Yeah,
the hesitation.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I think when you're constantly censoring yourself and you're not allowing yourself or allowing people to see who you really are, because, you've got to create this image, right?
yeah.
Um, that makes sense. Now, you're endorsed by, do you call it the incumbent if it's a current assembly member who's
Yes,
being forced out because of term limits? That's the incumbent, right?
yes.
Okay. So you're being endorsed by the incumbent. You're also being endorsed. I always screw up his name. Former LA mayor. Oh my God, what's his name?
Antonio
Antonio.
Antonio Villaraigosa.
Okay, I would have said Villaraigosa. Say it again.
Villaraigosa.
Villaraigosa.
Villaraigosa. Yeah.
Villaraigosa. Okay. Um. So that must feel good, right?
Yes. So I honestly, after the last election, it was so exhausting. It was so draining. I asked a lot of friends and family. This is also, you know, campaigns are a filter, right, for like who's actually going to show up for you, and that was
Yeah.
also very difficult for me to start filtering out who's actually going to be there for me, or who I have invested so much of my time with, who then didn't show up for me. Um, I had to grieve those losses as well. And then I got diagnosed with ADHD, and there were other things happening in family life. But the incumbent came and asked me, he's like, hey, I'm turned out, loved how you ran your last campaign, would love for you to run again. And I said, no.
Oh,
I said, no.
you did.
I did. I
Never
said, no.
again. That sounds
I
like, "You
said,
gonna write another book?" Never
I
again, and then yeah.
no.
So what happened?
Well, it took a couple of months. Like 4 months after he had asked me, I was like, hey, like what's happening? Is like anyone, sort of standing out to replace you? And he's like, no, and we're like a year from election. Like, are you interested still? And I was like, well, how often am I going to come across this scenario where I have the incumbent asking me to run? So
Mhm.
I have his support. I also just ran for city council, so I have high name ID that I
Yeah.
worked really, really hard to do. And the districts overlap and the job itself, right? You know, I loved, I love running, right? I would even love more to actually be able to legislate, but
Uh-huh.
being in politics, being in policy, right, is something that activates so many different parts of my brain, right? Because you get to opine on literally everything, right? And I work in education, but I have small amounts of expertise in like a million different things because I'm interested in everything, right?
Like a
I
true
am interested.
ADHDer.
Right, exactly, right? I think just like you, I was a poli sci major in college. I have a master's in public policy. So, talking about women's rights, right? Reproductive rights. Like I had an
Mhm.
abortion. Yes, like we should absolutely be focused on these things. Mental health care, immigration. I was an immigrant, right? financial, predators, right?
Mhm.
Banking and all these different things. Like my parents were constantly at, those like scammy payday lenders, right? That people still go to and like lose their money at.
Yeah.
Banks still charge $16 to just keep a checking account open. Like all of those different things that I've experienced. I've gone through the home purchase process. It's still so discriminatory, right?
Mhm.
Just to be able to purchase a home, and not to talk about California home prices, but all of
Yeah.
these different things that just like I want to fix them all, right? And my like sort of justice sensitivity of like there are all of these people that work 2, 3 jobs to just pay their rent, and they're actually regressing in their movement in society because everything's just getting more expensive for them as well. So it's just like, there are so many of those types of stories in this district. So it excites all different parts of my brain to be able to do something about it. So I love running. I would love to legislate even more.
So tell us about District 57 because it's a little bit different than other districts in Los Angeles.
Oh, yes. So, just in general, for those listening across the country and world, I imagine, California, it's kind of like the federal government, right? Our governor is kind of the president of the state, and we have bicameral legislatures. So we have a Senate and we have a assembly, which is kind of like the
Mhm.
House of Representatives, 40 senators, 80 assembly members. District 57 is probably one of the most poverty stricken districts in the state, with about 21% poverty rate. Average household income is about $40,000 a year, even though it includes half of downtown Los Angeles and South Los Angeles. So we've got the convention center, USC, Expo Park area, so big like museums in that area. Um, Also includes Skid Row. So it has one of the highest, if not the highest, homelessness rates up and down the state. We have lots of historic homes and historic folks who have inhabited those homes. We have a large Black population that has been here since the 30s, 40s, 50s, who bought their homes for $6,000 back in the day, but also because they were redlined out of the rest of the city.
Mm.
And over that time, sort of the population percentages have shifted. So it's now almost a 70% Latino district,
Oh,
just in terms of migration. And it's a wonderful community that's completely diverse. I love walking around my neighborhood. Yeah.
so I'm curious. What do you think about the California reparations? What do you call that? California
Yeah.
reparation
So it's funny
legislation.
that you asked that because it was led by the incumbent that I'm trying to replace, the
Ah,
reparations task force.
okay.
And they made several recommendations. And the LA Times asked me about this recently because they had just released their legislative package for the year, making recommendations. I think I'm open to several different things, including free tuition to California state colleges. So the whole system, UC, CSU, community colleges.
Mhm.
Um, I have not done enough research on cash reparations, so I'm not quite there yet.
Mhm. Mhm.
Only because like I don't understand yet the volume of
Yeah.
how many people would actually qualify for this.
Uh-huh.
And then, for me, I'm very utilitarian in my thinking, right? Greatest amount of good for greatest amount of people. Um, if it's going to be, then, one, we're in a deficit, budget deficit for the state.
Yep.
So we don't even have any money right now. But if we did have a surplus year, sometime in the future, what would that look like? Is this a $2,000 check? Is this a $200,000 check? Like, what does it mean? Um, because I don't think a $2,000 check is effective, right?
Uh-huh.
Versus like free tuition for descendants, right?
Yes.
How are we
Yes.
going to make the biggest impact?
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Yeah, and I think we need to make an impact. I mean, how long is this going to go on, right? But that's
Exactly.
just my little. Okay, so I want to know, what is it about you and your ADHD that makes you so good at what you do? So, what are the traits that you feel are responsible for your success and your ability to run a good campaign and, frankly, to be a good legislator?
Oh man. Let's see. I was trying to think about sort of the things that have made me successful. Um, I first intuition,
Mm.
right? I think I have so my day job, right, is I do a lot of public affairs for the university. So in that job, I have to be out and make connections, right? How can I get a company to work with the university, right? When we don't think usually about corporations and universities collaborating. How do we think a nonprofit and the university can work together? Is it jobs? Is it whatever? So my ability to make those connections, or think about different solutions to things, I think is a fantastic trait and something that, in the assembly and just in politics in general, I think it's a great thing because there are 80 assembly members and you need 41 to make anything happen,
Hmm.
right? You need the votes in order to be able to convince folks if you're passing certain types of legislation or you have something controversial or you have something innovative that they want to try. You need 41 people. So your ability to be able to make those connections and also think about it's not just about, oh, Dulce is really nice, right? I really like her. It's about what are you going to do, right? And
Yeah.
politics is about what are you going to do. And I think I'm really good at managing those things, right? Seeing people's intentions,
Ah.
right? Or seeing like their desires
Uh
or
huh.
motivations.
Uh
I
huh.
think I think I'm really good at that.
Meaning meaning before they even say anything about them. Like you can just pick it out of, which is such an ADHD thing, right? We don't,
Yes.
like, we always talk about how important focused attention is, right?
Right.
Because if you're focused in your attention, you're linear. So you are
Right.
looking at, okay, this is what happened before and this is what's going to happen now. And so you predict what you think is going to happen, and then that's all you look for. Versus unfocused attention, we're looking at that sort of, but then we're also paying attention to all the other stuff, like the way someone looks, or, just,
Hmm.
well, who they're around. Like, and we put all of that together. And then I think we just make better decisions that way.
Exactly. And just paying attention to the looks or the interactions or
Mhm.
whatever and being able to read that stuff, I think is so important in an ADHD, or such a great trait, such a great unique quality.
You mentioned this earlier. What about justice sensitivity?
So, I'm running. The reason I first decided to run for city council was during the pandemic, right? I was so upset over how the city was responding, about how the state was responding, sort of lack of urgency, lack of creativity, right? We have
Hmm.
this like once in a lifetime thing, and you're just sort of like dawdling on some of these things instead of being like, hey, like this is a once in a lifetime thing. All rules are off, right?
Or
Let's
out.
just
Yeah.
figure out, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's just figure out how to save as many people's lives as we can.
Hmm.
Um, and, I would just like, I'd watch these, first, like the federal government decided not to give stimulus checks to mixed status families, right? And like, that would have been me, right? Like, half undocumented, half documented, like we wouldn't have gotten anything. And I grew up in a family that, we were on food stamps.
Hmm.
So you had so many families struggling, particularly because it's the type of families that work in service industries,
Yeah.
right? So
Yes.
like,
They were out there
hotels,
on the front
they were,
lines.
well, both. Either they were out there on the front lines as grocery clerks and
Hmm.
hospital nurses, et cetera, or there were hotel and restaurant workers who were just out of a job overnight,
Yeah.
right? So my mom cleans houses and she was out of a job, right? and she made it up because one of the houses that she cleaned were two surgeons who then had their two little girls at home and couldn't go to school. So she became a nanny overnight because that's like what she had to do. So some of those injustices, watching, GoFundMe after GoFundMe for medical and funeral expenses, come through. And I'm here
Right.
thinking like, our government did not directly cause the pandemic, but I do think that there are certain things that our government did to allow it to run so rampant. And
Mm-hmm.
then because of that, all of a sudden, people are stuck with these thousands of dollars bills to bury their loved ones.
Yeah.
Why is that their responsibility? Right? So I just thing after thing, and I'm just like, then the protests started. Here in Los Angeles, we had the National Guard come in. There was
Mm-hmm.
looting and protests, and I'm here. A friend was like, "Hey, you're." Oh, I was collecting money for some of the small businesses that were looted to pay their insurance premium, right? Because people are like, "Oh, insurance will pay for everything." It's like, yeah, but people have a deductible, right? So
Yeah.
I was like helping, raise money for them because I was like, this isn't fair. These are immigrant businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So my friend was like, you should run for city council, and I was like, yes, I should. And that's where my impulsivity. That was where my impulsivity came through.
It was literally
Yeah,
overnight. You just made that decision and you went for it.
yeah,
And at what point
yeah.
were you in it thinking, what the hell did I do?
Yeah, well, we were like about to like launch the website, and it didn't even like hit me too. I was like, yeah, we're gonna do this. And the first day that you can file, right? We're like, we're doing this. We filed, and an LA Times reporter picks it up on Twitter, right? I thought this would be like, sort of, who's looking at this so far in
Right.
advance,
They don't
right?
know
So
me.
an LA Times reporter like picks it up, and it's like Commissioner Dulce Va I was a commissioner at the time. Commissioner Dulce Vasquez is challenging the incumbent for this seat. And I was like, oh shit, now it's real.
I can't hide. This can't just be some low level thing I dabble in, right?
Well, so like my strategy was like, you know what? I'm gonna raise some money, and I'm gonna see if I have the support of friends and family first
Mm.
before I officially like announce, right? I was like, if I can raise $50,000, right, just quietly, but I can't raise the money until I have an account open, right? So the account got opened and it triggered the LA Times, and all of a sudden it was like,
Oh,
she's challenging. Yeah. And I was like,
yeah.
oh shit. I was like, I thought I could do this quietly.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I hadn't really thought this through.
I
You
did
know,
not, yeah.
there was one other thing that I just realized that I wanted to ask you about that you sort of mentioned, and I think I got it right, but I'm really curious about it. Because I mean, I've had these experiences too. So you said something about, after the first election, you kind of had to do a little bit of, I don't know what other word to use, but sort of grieve the fact that there were friends and family members. Well, you were so appreciative and grateful for the people who did support you, but then there were some people who you really thought, oh, these are really good friends. These are really solid family members. I'm not sure if it was both, but they didn't support me at all. Was that true?
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. And it's funny because like I had gone through a candidate training program. All right.
mm,
Emerge California. They have Emerge in other states, but Emerge California, they teach you basically how to run for office. And I had done that um, in 2020. Um, and one of the things that they said, like, was like friends and family are going to disappoint you, and you will be shocked at how much a random stranger will just go all in for you.
oh,
And I that always like of the 6 month training program that always stuck with me. And then it finally was time for me to run, and it happened. Right? I was like, oh, of course it can't happen to me. Like my friends and family like love me. They're going to be there for me. And
uh-huh.
then some of them weren't. Some of them were, right? Some a lot of them were, but some of them weren't. And people who I had invested time and energy and money and catching up with them and sending presents to their kids and flying out to like visit them. I have friends across the country, and they just like weren't there for me. And I had to grieve that, right? And I also had to like pivot and adjust sort of after the fact too, of like, oh yeah, like I used to like be very close to this person, and now it's like, well, do I want to invest my
Mm.
time? It was very eye-opening. It was very, very good for me. I mean,
I
it was bad at
wonder
the
if
time.
part of it was that people pleasing thing too, that we are so good because of the empathy at going all in for other people. And we kind of realize over time, wait a minute, I'm the one who's always the doer, right? And they're the ones that are always taking. And so you expect that, okay, this one time in your life where something really big was happening, that finally they were going to step up. But you realize that no, they don't know how to step up, right? They only know your relationship is because you're always there for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I suspect that that's probably a common ADHD occurrence. We're doers, right? Just we're action takers typically, especially if there's any hyperactivity. And so I think we're always doing, and we tend to, because of the empathy, doing for other people, right? So that's probably even a bigger piece of it. And then all of a sudden you realize that, oh my God, well, I'm always the one who's doing. Isn't it time for other people to do just a little bit?
Yeah.
But it also then really makes you see those who, frankly, they're usually just like us, right? Because they're also doers, and so the relationship is much more balanced. And I think they can also be really happy for your success.
Oh my God. Yes. I think
Mhm.
so. So one, throughout this process, I'm thinking back to like getting my ADHD diagnosis, and the people who showed up for me were happy for my success, doubled down, flew
Yeah,
across the country to come knock on doors with me.
yeah,
Um, we actually don't run like wolves. We run like a pack of wolves. So I'm
uh-huh.
realizing the neurodivergence in all of my closest friends,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? It's like, oh, yeah, we all have ADHD. That's why we get along so well.
Well, and it's
And
also it's just a sensitivity, right? And it's
yes,
also this energy I think that we often bring to things where when we get excited, we are gushers. When we're upset, you hear from us too, but um I expected that you would have that experience as well. I mean, that certainly has been my experience with the book. Blown away by so many people and their level of support. People I didn't even know until this whole thing. But then some people, it's just like they could really care less. I don't think they've even bought the book, you know?
I will tell you. So I got the book because I went to the dinner,
No.
but I usually read that's been another thing too, that I've learned, that I can listen to a book at 2x speed, right, and fly through them, but I can't physically read a book.
Yeah.
Like I just fall asleep and I can't
Yep.
absorb anything in the page.
Yeah.
And so learning that I went through college and through grad school like this, right? It's like, how did I survive?
Mm-mm.
But
Hard work.
usually I'm obsessed with Libby right now. But I was
With
like,
who?
Libby, the app, the
What
reading
is
app.
Lib? I don't know what Libby is. What is Libby?
You don't
Tell
know what
us.
Libby is? It's
No.
it's an app, Libby,
Okay. I was
and
thinking you're Libby Owens. I don't know.
no, it's a book app, and
Okay.
you can rent books from with your library card. It's free.
I have heard of this. Okay. Okay.
But I was like, I love Tracy so much. I'm not going to get it on Libby because it was also like a 7 week wait, by the way.
Oh, yay. I love hearing that.
Um, and I went and I was like, I'm going to give her some money. I'm going to buy on Audible.
Oh, and you also attended the event. Were you able to get
Yes.
through it?
Oh yeah, I finished it. I finished it in like 2 days.
Oh, I love that.
The beginning of the book is literally my every morning.
Oh,
Every morning I go through the beginning of the book of like, and also because I'm trying to procrastinate working out. right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, let's clean the whole house. I have this package has to be opened. This stuff has to be done. But, you know, also understanding that like I've tried several workarounds too to that, right? Like if I wake up and I'm trying to make coffee, but the milk frother is dirty, like the night before, I put it on my little reminder task list.
Yep.
I have to clean the sink before I go to bed because if not, I'm going to waste time in the morning procrastinating doing it.
Yep.
I spend so much time like getting a water bottle. So now I keep refillable water bottles in the refrigerator, right? So I can just grab it and go into the
Yep.
gym. They're just like
Yeah.
certain things that I'm trying, I try.
Right. Right. I think the biggest key though is really getting clear on your intention. Why are you doing this? And then creating an identity around it. I am the kind of person who does whatever it is that runs first thing in the morning. Because what I will say, I don't run in the morning, but I do work out first thing in the morning. And it has now gotten to the point where there is never a thought in my mind that I'm going to procrastinate or do anything but go straight for we have a small gym in our house, go straight for the gym. And so
Yeah.
you train your brain. And then over time, my brain just like, I never have any negative reaction whatsoever. In fact, I look forward to it. So it really is getting to the point where you can be doing it every time for a couple weeks. And then all of a sudden, you're just going to find yourself just naturally being drawn to it. The only thing I say about running, though, is at some point, you're not going to be able to run, right? There's always
I
something like
know.
a knee or a hip, or so I think there needs to be other stuff in there.
Yeah. Well,
So there's no
I read your
excuse, is
book.
my point.
I read your book, and I do have both. I've got both the spin bike and the treadmill in the gym,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Just
you
like me.
know,
Yes.
yep, just like you.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So, what do you think the key to living successfully with ADHD is?
Learning about it, right?
Okay.
It's been probably what 16 or 18 months since I've gotten my official diagnosis. And every day I learn something new about it, right? I'm learning sort of the physical iterations of ADHD. I'm hypermobile. I have scheduled an appointment with a neurologist to see if I might have EDS or POTS, right,
Mm-hmm.
associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning, um, also like teaching your family about it, or having them curious enough to learn about it and
Yeah.
be able to interact with you. There's always been so much guilt that I've carried, right, for my shortcomings. I forgot someone's birthday, and they came back and they'll be like, everyone else said happy birthday to me except for you. And I was just like, oh, the crushing guilt. Right. But like, if they had known that like I have ADHD and that like I set reminders for myself and I just had a bad day and I completely,
Yeah.
like, it had nothing to do with them. Right. Like they could be gentler with me. Right.
Uh-huh.
So I think, being on this podcast, being open about it, being great, and like, so that people can understand me better and hopefully decrease my negative interactions with folks too, because I have the strongest RSD.
And so I just want to point out you have the strongest RSD, rejection sensitive dysphoria, for people who don't know what that is, but you still get yourself out there. So we're highly critical of ourselves, and that's what goes on in our brain. You still get yourself out there every day in the most public, most visible, most, oh my God, it can be so mean,
Oh my
politics.
God. Yeah.
You're out there. You're still out
Yeah,
there. Why?
I am.
Because it
Because
makes
I
you
think
feel better, right?
well, I have a goal and I have a purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the way that Tracy, you found your purpose in giving women with ADHD this feeling of like, this is important. We are important. I believe that my purpose now is to be able to represent Californians at the state assembly. Like that gives me purpose. And I think that that's so much bigger than, people saying mean things to me on the internet.
And how does it make you feel when you step into that fear and discomfort? Do it anyway because you see your purpose on the other side. And all of those, I mean, what I always say is forget about yourself, right? Focus
Yeah.
on, mine is always focus on that one woman. And I'm sure
Right.
yours is focus on that one, I don't know, constituent.
Right. Exact constituents. Yes.
Yeah. But you feel so much better, right? Than if you didn't
Uh,
do it and you stayed
oh
small.
my God. No, absolutely. Having interactions with people one on one. I had a woman on Tuesday that we were talking about housing and her struggles. And she's like, I lost everything. And this happened to me. And she starts crying and she's like, we need people like you to represent us. And like, I sit in it. Right. And I'm so empathetic, right? Like I'm absorbing that
Hmm.
woman's energy and like, I want to start crying. And it's just like, yes, like this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. We need more people like you in politics, especially now where there's literally just a lack of empathy. It's like, anyway, don't get me
Few,
started.
I've said this before. I was like, we need fewer narcissists in public office.
Yeah. And just people who care about other people.
Yes.
So, do you have a number one workaround?
So right now it's probably like automating and reminders. Like all of last year I used the habit tracker app.
Did that work
Um,
for you
it kind of worked. Um,
until you
so
forgot about
this
the fact that you had it?
Yeah, and it just kept sending me reminders that I would then just ignore. So
I
this
know.
year I integrated. I'm an Apple user, right? So now I'm like integrating everything. So I'm trying to use the reminders app
Mm-hmm.
more. So
Mm-hmm.
everything that I had on the habit tracker, I'm doing in reminders. And in reminders, you can obviously schedule like repeat things, right? So like I have to check off that I cleared out the sink at night, right? But I'm setting it that like I set it for 9 p.m. because like that's what I'm gonna, and you can sort of schedule like morning, afternoon, evening things on the reminders app. So in the morning, I gotta work out, I gotta take the dog out, I gotta, do whatever. And at night, I gotta clear the sink, I gotta,
Mm-hmm.
take out trash every Monday night or whatever it is. So being able to cross off those things and being able to do it at like, it's not just a random like workout today, right? It's like workout in the morning and you check it
Yes.
off,
Yes.
right? So I think I'm being very diligent about it. I've also like this year is my year of no more little black notebooks that I carry around, right? I'm digitizing everything
Mm-hmm.
because the black notebooks, like if I leave it at home, right, then it's
Yeah.
like, where did I write that thing down?
Ugh.
Right. So now I'm integrating it into the notes app, which I can then like sort of, it can talk to the reminders and the reminders can read my email and be like, hey, do you want a reminder for this? Like, yes. So that for me, particularly in 2024 is where I'm investing so much of my energy. And it's been really, really good for me this year. And hopefully like I don't forget about it. But the reminders come in my watch, the reminders like,
Yes. Everywhere.
yeah.
Everywhere. And you're going to need that when you win, right? You're going
Yes.
to need it even more. Although at
Yes.
least you'll have, I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know, I'm assuming you'll have more people too to kind of support you in, all of those little details so that you can do what you do best, which is lead.
Exactly, exactly. I think so much of this, I think so much of, I don't know, I've never been a publicly elected official, but I think so much of it is judgment too. Like, do you have the right judgment? And then you have
Mhm.
people to support you in a direction that you're
Mhm.
going and in the big overarching things that you're doing.
Yep.
So I'm excited for that.
Absolutely. Okay. When you win, the next time I go to LA, will you meet me at the most fun restaurant in South Central?
Ooh, yes,
I don't know
yes.
where that would be, but I know you would.
Oh, yes. Well, so there's so many places, but my immediately when you said just like most fun, it's actually not. I was thinking about a place in downtown Los Angeles that just opened. It's in the district, right? But It's called Level 8 at this the Moxie AC hotel that just it just opened within the last couple of months, and there are
Okay.
like
Writing it down.
8 different restaurants, bars, food, eateries
Wow.
at this, yeah, and everything has a different concept, and it's just like an ADHDer's dream, right? Because it's like one of them is by the pool and has like carnival lights that spin, and another one has like a burlesque show and a piano, that like piano stage that rotates into a bar, and another one has like all of these like Japanese cherry blossoms themed with all of these, like, you know, the little like cat with the hand, has like a wall, has a
Those
wall
jumping.
full of them. It
Yeah.
has a wall full of them. So I walked in there and me and my husband made all the hands move. Like we're just sitting there like moving all the
Oh my
so
God.
it's just like it's so fun, and I adore going there. So when you said that, I was like, most fun.
Okay. It sounds like a really, really upscale food court.
Yes.
It's just all in one big area. Okay. So, Dulce, tell us. Well, we know what you're working on. So, where can people find you? They want to know more about you, they want to support you, all of the things.
Oh, all of the things. Yes. So please follow on Instagram, TikTok, Threads at Vasquez Dulce. And you can donate to the campaign. Everything is important. $5, $10, $500. Everything is really, really helpful. It takes about a dollar per household to send just like a mailer. And there are, 80,000 households or more in the district. So you can donate at dulcevasquez.com.
DulceVasquez.com. So there's no like, I don't know, like link, they just click and pay? How do they
Yeah,
go?
I mean,
Oh, it's
you go
at
to,
Dulce. That's a website, Tracy. It's not an email. I'm like, what the hell? She's giving an email? Okay, I get it. So it's dulcevasquez.com. I'm going to spell it Dulce, like sweets, right?
yes.
Um, VASQUEZ.com. We will have this
Mhm.
in the all in the show notes. Dulce, thank you so much for spending time with us here today. I wish you the very best of luck. You are definitely the best candidate. I haven't even
Thank
talked to
you.
any of the others, but I can tell because you're one of us. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Absolutely. So that's what I have for you for this week. If you like this episode with Dulce, please let us know by leaving a review. Our goal is to change the conversation around ADHD, helping as many women as we possibly can learn how their amazing brains work so that they too may discover their incredible strengths. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you here next week. And don't forget those reviews. Okay, bye bye.